There. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. I know it's definitely a good, well, it's a morning for Melissa. I don't know if you can be good at 4 a.m. So I am Brian. That's
Five
Melissa.
now.
There's Desiree, depending on which way your screen is set up. This is Revit Radio. Looks like mostly recognizable names, but I see a few new ones in there I don't recognize. So for those of you who don't know what this is, you ask questions and we answer them. We just ask that you put those questions in the question and answer pod, because if you put them in the webinar chat, we usually just ignore those because too many people start chatting and we kind of miss it. So that's what this is all about. But like usual, while I'm stalling and waiting for people to ask some questions, oh, I know I forgot somebody actually emailed that question to me. I'll have to pull that up. But while we're waiting for questions to come up, that I always have something I want to talk about. And ironically, I 2 weeks ago, Augie did their online conference called AuggieCon, and I presented this 2 weeks ago. But it made me go back, as then like 2 days later, I was actually using one of my Revit components, and I realized I should go fix this. So what I taught at AuggieCon was just Revit stability. And I always like to show people this scenario here. So my nice building blocks that Rick was laughing at. This is the family I've created, and I put a face-based object on here, just so happened to be this clock. And the reason why I did this is I like to show people that as you're in Revit families, everything has a direction. So when I went in here, and I'm just going to delete the faucets out of here, but I went in here and put these clocks on here. These are literally extrusions where the work plane is all set in plan. But as I put the clocks on here, you can see they're rotating which direction they're going. The same thing would be true, and this is where I actually came up with it after I did AuggieCon. If I do my face-based sink, I place it on my countertop, it is coming in sideways, right? Which is kind of a pain in the ass. I mean, it's not a big deal. Every time I go to places, I can hit the space bar to rotate it, but it is coming in sideways. So the reason for that is one of two things. It could either be the reference plane that you're hosting that onto, or in this particular case, it's actually the directionality of the sketch lines of the extrusion. So I have no idea how these lines were drawn, but I bet if I come in here and redraw these lines, knowing me, I probably did them in a clockwise motion, because that's usually what I do. I'm always like, hey, let me stick in a clockwise motion. What I want to do is come in here and just start drawing these in a counterclockwise motion. But the stupid part is, it's not just drawing them in a counterclockwise motion. What needs to happen is which line you start with and which direction you do that to. So I'm just going to draw this. I'm going to realign and lock all of my sketch lines to the reference planes and lines. I'm going to go ahead and finish this. And I'm going to go ahead and reload this into my project. Tell it to overwrite. It's probably going to delete my sink because they're new sketch lines and it's going to go everywhere else. Yes, go ahead and delete the sink. But now you'll notice when I place the sink in here, it's going in the right direction, right? I didn't do anything to this family. Literally all I did was go in and change the directionality of the sketch lines, right? So I went counterclockwise, starting with that back line. If I come back in here and I redraw these lines, I'm going to delete them. And I'm going to go again counterclockwise, but I'm going to start with the front line. And again, I'm just drawing a shape in here, and then I'm going to realign them to the right reference planes, or to the correct reference planes, because I do have a right reference plane in here. And I do have my lock turned on in my align commands. I don't have to worry about hitting the padlock. But now I'm going to go in and reload it. So again, still those sketch lines were drawn counterclockwise, but this time I started with the front line, and now the sink's backwards. So it's just one of those things that if you have a family that you're noticing you're putting something in, you need to flip it or space bar it or something else, if that's a face-based family, it's not your face-based family. It's more than likely what you're putting it onto. I know for one of my clients, I went and created their toilet partitions, and every time they put the face-based tissue dispensers or whatever it was on that toilet partition, it always came in to the inside of the toilet partition. They always had to hit the flip face button on that, right? They always had to come in here. It's going to suck on this one, but they had hit the little arrow for the flip face. Right now it's upside down here, but that's what they had to do for their little family for their wrong thing. I want to say flip face. What am I going to do? Flip face on base. Now you actually have to the icon. But so they actually they had to go through and do that every time they placed it. I'm kind of like, oh, we can fix that. it's the directionality of those sketch lines. So if I come back down here to this nice little family I have here, right, you can see all of these. I did one point in time go in way back when, I think this was like 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was. I did draw all these different extrusions going, okay, I'm going to use the rectangle going from right to left, the rectangle going from left to right, from top left to bottom right. And I just kept going, okay, sketch lines, if I draw them all the same direction or all counterclockwise, and then I could go through and reload that back into the project just to see how those face directionality were going. You will see that I did come in here and put in hatch patterns, so materials, excuse me. So on the material I put inside of here, the directionality only affects other face-based families. It does not change the directionality of the material. So those sketch lines doesn't care for materiality, but it does care for other objects hosting on it. So not a big deal, just the one thing I really wanted to cover as we're waiting for some questions, just like, okay, this is a scenario that we have going on. Directionality of all of those different sketch lines can matter to you. Now I'm trying to find my Revit Radio question that came up. Put it up here on my second monitor so we can kind of see what's going on. I don't even know if that person is here. Cool. All righty. So what questions do we have come out there, Melissa?
Goodness, sorry. There's my voice. All right, well, Brian, way to go with the stutter question. Brian's asking, while I'm multitasking, something that's always bugged him. When using the native print in Revit, why does it insist on adding the name of the file as a prefix to individual sheets? Any way around this with native printing?
So when you are printing to a PDF, Bluebeam PDF, etc., I always got to remember where this is. And you go into the set. No, I got to do name Bluebeam PDF. If I'm doing a create, I actually got to go to a sheet. I don't think I have any sheets in this project. There's a setting in there for do you want to use long name or short name? So you can tell it to not add the name for each individual sheet. I just got to remember where that setting is in the printing. That's a single file. I want individual files. I've got to select more, view more, selected views or sheets. Go select. We will just grab all of these here. Cool. I thought I grabbed all of those. Come on, spacebar. Close enough. Select those. So when you come up here and you say you're going to do this in here, there should then be where you get into, where is this? Or am I thinking of exporting? Oh, I might be thinking of exporting. So when you export to CAD, you get that option. When you export to CAD is what I was thinking of, not the printing. So then the question becomes, if you did an export to PDF as opposed to a print to PDF, I think you get that option here. Family name, sheets in a single PDF. No, I don't want those in a single PDF. I must be only thinking of the export. Yeah, I must be thinking of the export, where you can say, hey, include the file name or not the file name. Export setup. Nope. Yep, I must be thinking, or is it here? Oh, here you go. So in the export to PDF, it's been a while since I've been in here. So in the export to PDF, you actually have what's the file name in here. So here you can see it's going to say type and then the view name. You can actually, if you're exporting PDF, add what you want that name to come out as. So you can grab any of the different things, like if you wanted the phase filter, the view name. In this case, that would be your sheet name as well. But sheet name, sheet number, you could have it just give you both of those for the individual things. And I believe this is not then going to give you your file name. I could be incorrect because I've only used this a few times because I don't do real work, so I don't ever actually print sheets. So hopefully that's it. But I think the one I was thinking of is when you export to CAD, you can say use long name, which include the file name, or you can say short name, which just includes the actual name of the view itself. So yeah, I got nothing for you on the when you're just printing the PDF. Sorry, Brian.
That was super helpful.
I guess the other thing though then is if you do get that, I have a program that I use for everything called File Renamer. I think what do you guys use? You have something too.
Bulk
Yeah, you
file.
have Bulk Renamer. I have File Renamer, I believe, because this was a free version. Might have paid $20 for it like 10, 20 years ago. But File Renamer, kind of the same thing. If I open a File Renamer, I could then grab all of those and say, hey, let me subtract the first 6 characters, whatever it did for the name, and it would actually just delete the first 6 characters. So that's what I end up using when I get unwanted things like that. So yeah, grab some sort of file renaming tool if that's what you keep getting, Brian. And someone said, how are toys for Windows 11? Great renamer tool. And it's totally free. That sounds like it's whole. Was that an intended pun, Jacob? I'm just curious. Kyle Phillips says his company won't even allow people to use a free version of a bulk renamer. Dang, that's just crazy to me. They'd rather have people spend hours renaming things than use a tool.
Or just pay a little. Aaron does like to pay for things like that to help out because he knows.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so along the printing lines, Rick's saying, I like using print sheets in PyRevit using the Bluebeam driver. Your thoughts? Do you like Droot's, the new built-in PDF exporter, or something else? Pros, cons?
The one thing I love about PyRevit, which I haven't updated the new one for 25 yet. The one thing I love about PyRevit is the fact that you can print based off of a sheet, or excuse me, a schedule. So I can go to my drawing index and say print it in this order and it prints it off that order, or it just grabs those sheets. So I don't have to go into anything and set up a print set. I don't have to go in and do any of this with that PyRevit printer. I can just go in and say, cool, I wanted to print this, and I go ahead and print it. It just off of this schedule, and I get exactly what I'm looking for on that schedule. I've used that one when I've had to print most often. Yes, I do go out the Bluebeam PDF to do that, and that's how I've done it the majority of the times I've had to print. I know with the new exporter, export to PDF out of Revit, you can move the files up and down and get them organized, but you have to go through and move the files up and down. I just want to do basically what I had for um, my schedule. It's like the drawing index already has it. That's just what I want to do. Let me use the drawing index. And so that's what PyRevit actually gave us to do. And that's the one I use most often. I tried the DI roots one. I don't often have the DI roots tool loaded. I do turn that one off quite often because I've noticed it significantly slows down my Revit open time. So I love the DI roots tool, the D roots tools. I love those, but I've noticed it adds about a 2-minute extension to me just opening up Revit. So most of the time I just go in and rename. So how I turn my utilities off is I just have a shortcut to my Revit Add-ins folder. Actually, I have 2 shortcuts to both of them. And then in that Revit Add-ins folder, I just go in and rename what I don't want opened .txt. And then it won't open it as long as you've renamed that file. So I do Inkscape. I usually have turned off because again, that's another one that takes Revit, slows the opening of Revit down. DI Roots does as well. Those are the 2 I usually turn off most often because I also don't use them all of the time. So that's what I do. Can you change it back to add in? I actually don't change the names when I'm in there. I just add a .txt at the end, and then I just remove the .txt. There are 2 utilities out there. Droots does have one right here. If I open it, they actually have one called an app manager. My problem is every time I've opened up their app manager, it comes in and only gives me like a partial list and everything's grayed out and I can't turn it off anyway. So I come in here and I go to that in manager. Half of the times I come in here and do this, like these are grayed out. Like, oh yeah, I can't do any of these. I can't turn them. Now, granted, those are 2020s and I don't have Revit 2020 installed, but I literally opened this up like 2 weeks ago to show somebody and I could turn off like 3 of the utilities, but they're all there. So basically all it's doing when you hit this button is going in and renaming that file. And then when you turn it back, it goes in and renames it back. There's also one from Harry, Booster BIM, through Stantec. They have one, and it was basically doing the same thing. It just goes in, it renames those files. And I'm kind of like, yeah, with the exception of maybe I want to do 10 of them at the same time. But again, I could use a bulk renamer for that. You can come in here and just be like, cool. Like I said, if I really wanted to get rid of it, I just do a rename. I put a .txt at the end, so then I can just come back and rename it later and do it as a dot add-in, and it'll come back. There are 2 folder paths for this. So here's the one folder path. It's under Program Data Autodesk. The other folder path for some of those is, we gotta figure out which this one here, is under not just Program Data, but this one's actually under App Data Roaming. So Enscape and PyRevit use this folder. Most of the other ones use the Program Data folder. So Enscape, PyRevit, they're using your roaming folder. The other one is using the just program data for everyone. So that's how I do it. And if you want to open up Revit with nothing, just rename the whole damn folder. So if you're like, cool, I want to come in here to the 2024, I could rename this entire folder. It would turn off all the add-ins. It will rebuild that folder for you. So the next time you come in here, you could be like, ooh, I'm going to rename this 2024 old, or, whatever, dash, dash, dash. The next time I open up Revit 24, it's going to just automatically generate that folder. It will just be blank. So then when I want it back, I have to delete that folder and rename this folder back to 24. But do all of this when you're not inside of Revit. Works much better to do it when you're not inside the program.
Oh, come on, live a little. What could possibly go wrong?
So Chris is saying if you're on the DI Roots app manager as an admin, it works. Well, I am an admin. I haven't found a consistency in that app, the add-ins manager. Like I said, today I went in and they were all there. It's like, cool, they're there. But I went in there other times and it's like, yeah, the whole entire thing's grayed out. It's like, I can't turn anything off and I haven't figured out the rhyme or reason. I don't use it that often, like I said, because to me, it's just as easy to come in here and just rename the damn files. But I guess if you're like, I wanted to turn Inkscape off in every single version, it would be easier to use their tool. Again, assuming it wasn't going to be grayed out for me. And someone said I saw, they said there's no PyRevit for 2025. I noticed they had released a new version, but I hadn't went in and looked at it yet. They released it when I was at my conference last week. So there you go. All right. So what's our next question?
Let's see. See if we can stick with printing stuff.
Yeah, Rick says he's also running into the question of, are the similar issue of DI roots not working?
That's not helpful. Yes, and Jason says we have our keynote manager for 25.
Yes, I noticed yesterday that the updated Revolution design tools all got updated. I haven't downloaded those yet. It was yesterday at the end of the day when I was leaving the client's office. It's like, there's updates. Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Simon's asking if there's any way to make the big text transparent when to put on a sheet, like a watermark.
Big text transparent when putting on a sheet, much like a watermark. Because yeah, I don't know if there would be a way to do that. Because your text, I don't think text. Sure, text. Because when you're looking at the properties of text, there's no like transparency for it.
But model text.
Yeah, you can do it as model text, but then it's not on a sheet. Then you'd have this mod because you wouldn't be able to do it on a sheet. Can you right click, override graphics and view on this element and make it transparent? Nope. Yep, nope. Don't think there's a way to make text
It's not transparent, but you could at least spray it out.
Yeah, I don't think there is a way to do that. Because even in a well, if you nest, hold on. I didn't ever start my template. Let me go back to here. I'm gonna close some of these things here. I was gonna say, because if you did it in a family, so like if you had the text as a nested detail component, which had the nested generic annotation into it, you might then be able to use a filter to filter that. So let me think about that. So if I go new project, let me go browse to my template. I haven't set up my shortcuts for 25 yet. Because I have one where I have that done, so I'm wondering if I'd be able to filter it and make that text transparent. So if I go, well, this is a sheet. So if I come into this sheet and I go ahead and add a family that is going to be in this case, it's a detail item. No, it's not a detail item, I'm sorry, it's an annotation symbol. My detail guide, right? If I just put this over here, just doing this because I know it has text in it. And if I were to grab this text and say watermark, then if I grab this, now because it's an annotation, so you'd have to nest that into a detail component. This is an annotation symbol. And I don't think you get transparency on annotation symbols. So get a detail, you probably have to do as a detail component with a nested. Do I have one of those? I do. So if I go to detail components, sorry, I'm thinking this through here. I'm gonna come up with something that's probably still gonna be no, you can't do that. Oh, because you can't create detail components in a sheet. Yeah, I got nothing. Sharon.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do the boring thing and say, yep, just toss those in post. Just blue beam, copy that across to all your sheets. Which,
And in your title block, you wouldn't be able to do that either. Because whenever you have a big giant piece of text, but you can't make text even in the title block transparent, I can't think of. Or labels or anything. The background, but not the text, yeah. I have to say no, I don't think so. Cool. So what's our next question?
now my brain's going through like, well, I guess you could model what you want it to be, make it a thing. Revit wish list. Yes, that would be kind of nice. Let's see. I think we're done with printing. So Nick put in it doesn't really seem like a question. Nick's saying there's a 10-second lag if I click out of Revit, like to Bluebeam or email. When I click back into Revit, the drawing area, you get the spinning wheel of boredom for 10 seconds. The only way I found around this is to click the topmost part of Revit window where the project title is, then it doesn't happen. It occurs on all versions of Revit on my current machine, not when I remote into the office.
So if you click out of the print dialog and you come back to Revit, you're getting the spinning wheel of death unless you activate Revit up here. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I often so my other question, Nick, is you alt tabbed over to Revit, would that get it? So like if you alt tabbed over to Revit, would that be the same as clicking up on the top? Or Windows tab, but I use the alt tab. Oops. I use the alt tab because I like to see it. Just don't do alt tab if you have a web page up that you don't want people to see. All right, what's our next question?
Okay. Let's see, Tony's asking for ideas or suggestions on how to add top of column elevation to a concrete column tag.
So a column tag, let's just go open. I believe the column tag is now they probably aren't going to give you the top. I would do a spot elevation on that, which obviously would work. Let's go open up the structure sample file.
I'd maybe do it in Dynamo because you get the line that defines the column, get the elevation at the end point of the line, dump it back into a parameter.
Well, Revit would have that value in it, so you probably would need, yeah, you probably need to do the line. It would probably actually have the elevation of the end of the
Yeah, it
column.
might. Yeah, it might. That's not going to be in the tag.
Well, I don't know. Everything else we can do elevation on. We can do it on floors and everything.
Foundation, yeah, foundation has it.
I haven't looked at a structural column tag in recent years to see if they added that there.
Or some sort of weird schedule trick. I don't think you can get the elevation of the level, just the name of the level.
Yeah, I always gotta try to freaking remember that. Because they sneak every year. I feel like they sneak things in. Like I was training in Revit 24 actually this week, and I forgot and I didn't notice that. Oh no, not here. In the snaps, they added the one in here to snap to coordination models in 24. It's like, oh, I didn't know they added that one in there. Look, there's a new button in here that I didn't know was there. It's like, oh, makes sense since they added the coordination models. Column tags, column tag. Let's just edit this column tag and see. Edit the label. You know, we got the top offset, but that doesn't help us.
No, not unless you could somehow do a map thing with elevation of the level plus, but I don't think it's gonna. I don't think you're gonna get there.
What would top cut height be? I don't know what top cut height is.
Good question. Maybe if you attach the top of a column, how it slices the top of the column, that's the element.
God, they've added so many more in here. All the forces, assemblies. All the bolt stuff. Huh, I don't know. Let's see what top cut height gives us. Load that back in. Nope, it's not where I wanted to load it. Cancel. It's probably going to give me absolutely nothing. Yep.
Or attaching the column to something, attach the top of it, such that it'll cut the top of it.
You're assuming I know which one that one is. I hate the fact that they broke this on me. Site model was not supposed to be loaded in all of this stuff. Yes, go away. Now, which column was it is the big question. I'm done with tag. I should have closed it. Attach to this. Now it's attached. See if that changed the tag. Nope. It's probably some weird one of the shape size things in here. I don't know what that one is. So yeah, no, it doesn't look like the elevation is. I mean, you can always come back in and do a spot elevation on the column as well. But I mean, it's no different than what we do for our beam tags, right? Our beam tag, we've got a beam tag and the spot elevation next to the beam tag. We just happen to have, ooh. So I wonder
put that in your beam tag.
What was that?
For the beam tags though, has the beam tag tool that could include the elevation.
Right, but Ideate has a tool that allows you to do tagging now. And I bet you could set up columns to get tagged at the top. I'd have to look into that. But yeah, so no, not out of the box. Yeah, you'd have to extract that data. I mean, those are the things that always frustrate me in Revit. Like this column knows how tall it is. It knows its top and bottom elevation behind the scenes. Why don't they expose that and let me tag that information? It drives me crazy. I mean, we have that with beam tags. We now have that with floor tags and roof tags. Why can't we just start getting that stuff with like column tags as well?
Do you
But
do
yeah, as
something
someone said,
funky like nesting in a thing that sits on top of the column and get that elevation somehow? I don't know.
yeah. You could get the length of the column by putting a reporting parameter into the column family. But
Yeah.
that's not unless you then did some sort of other value that then took. Yeah, I got nothing. I'm trying, I got nothing. All right, so what's the next question?
It seems needlessly complicated. Let's see. So that was. Oh, Michael's saying the thing with Revit hanging up happens to him too in every version. That's very annoying.
Oh, on the print thing, so hangs every. Yeah, like I said, I don't print that often. I'm doing model work and content creation work. I don't usually print that often, and if I do, it's not hundreds of pages, so I can't really answer a lot of the printing questions.
All right. What's the best way to copy materials and wall types between projects and keep them the same after changes?
Yeah, there's not. So whenever you take a material, I'm just going to start with materials, and you copy a material from, or even edit a material in a family and load that into the project. The first time you do it, it will add that material. But if that material resides within the project and you try to either copy something from another project that has that material loaded in, or if you try to load a family that you've made changes to that same material and bring it in, Revit will not overwrite the materials in a project when something else is being loaded in. If that name exists, it rules within the project. So you're not going to be able to get that to happen. The same thing would be true for walls. If I had copied all these walls from this project and pasted them into the next, and then somebody updates it in one or the other project, you're never going to be able to get Revit to keep those two together. Now you could be like, hey, let me copy this, and sometimes it'll, I don't think with walls it lets you overwrite them. So if I just copy this here, go back into here and paste it. Cancel, I don't care about saving. Paste this wall in here. Okay, and that dialog box that I just said okay to that too is even letting you know, hey, FYI, I'm not going to overwrite those materials. Yeah, delete the openings, I don't care.
What about transfer project standards?
Yeah, but usually it's one or two materials, not the whole thing. But let me just check this. Let me come in here. That's not the right project. This one's where I needed to go. Take that same wall we had. Let me edit the type of this and just go make it something ridiculously wider to see if it'll update. 4 feet, cool. Gonna break a whole lot of things here. Well, you can't transfer project standards for walls, right? So the question said walls and materials.
Sure you can.
You can transfer project standards for system families?
Yeah, walls are in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Crap, when did they add that? Probably like years ago. Yeah, unjoin. I know I broke a lot of shit. Yeah, delete the elements. I don't care. Yes, I know. Delete the instances. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have went 4 feet. Right, so if I copy that to the clipboard again, the biggest thing I always have on this is trying to compare which one changed. Oh, I can see they're different, but especially when you get more than one person in a project working on a file, it's like, yeah, I've had things like this, and that's where honest truth, yeah, so that's the same wall. Did I grab a different wall? Shit, I grabbed a different wall. God damn it. I grabbed a 10-inch wall, not 12-inch wall. Did I grab this one, I guess? I really do not think I grabbed that one. We're not going to make it so drastic. We're going to actually make it thinner too. That should break less things. Come on, come on, come on. The other thing the one thing that I really wish, and I know it's been on the Autodesk wish list for a while, is when I do transfer project standards, it lets me choose what I want to transfer, because I might not want to transfer all of the wall types. Hey, I only want to transfer that 1 6-inch or that one concrete 10-inch wall. Back here and paste.
Yeah, I've been getting around that. I've been moving my wall types around for all the shop drawings we've been doing lately. I've been getting around that by saving off a copy of the project I want to use and then just delete out what I don't want.
Yeah, so I said make it 6 inches. If we come back here and say edit type, it does not look 6 inches to me. No, it still stayed at 10. So now you said we could transfer project standards, so we'll do that. Manage, transfer project standards from the Snowden structure. Check none, walls. Let's see what it gives us. Overwrite. Yep, so the overwrite does work. So you can transfer, but again, you'd have to copy that one wall type out if you only wanted the one wall to a different project that doesn't have it. Blank file, and then transfer project standards over. But if you're talking walls and materials and all of it, it's kind of like, doesn't do it. And yeah, thank you for whoever typed in the JO tools. The JO tools, yeah, they do have those, and I knew somebody had a tool. I just wasn't sure which tool it was. There are tools out that say, hey, I want to transfer, but I don't want to transfer this element, and this element. So if you're really looking at doing it, it might be one of those things to be looking at too.
Yeah, and it's definitely not. It's definitely worth $10.
Cool. So what
I
other
was
questions?
wanting to know if Guardian would be able to.
Yeah, Guardian would be able to do that. And I was going to throw it
after
out there.
you've done it.
Yeah, because Guardian, you can say, hey, I want to check these 2 projects and see what varies from project A to project B. And then, oh, these wall types are different. What's different about them? Yeah, push these ones over into that one. So that would be the other solution to be looking into. If it's something you do quite often, look into Guardian to do that. Because I know I have one client who they do a lot of like strip mall type stuff, and they do each building as its own project. And then it's like, oh, we changed this brick gap from 2 inches to 2.5. So they go into each file and do it. It's like, yeah, you guys need to look into Guardian to do that.
Let's see. Oh, and of course, Revit stuff.
Oh, I missed a comment from Beth. She also said when you're printing, she found out the native export PDF does model text way better than print to PDF with Bluebeam or any other PDF printer. That's good to know.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a fun day. Or week, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, so Trevor's saying in perspective views, I end up with the floor ghosting through the walls when I join the wall and floors. This is in a residential situation where we like to have the wall sheathing and cladding come over the room joists of the floors. Is there a way to stop the floor from ghosting through the walls?
No, you'll just sometimes see that. It also depends on the reason you're getting that is you're modeling that only 3/4 of an inch below. So you'll just start to see it. Like you're not seeing it here because you can see the wall is there and these are joining. But if this floor was something like 3/4 of an inch thick, then yes, you would start to see those little ghosting lines. It's just hey, we've got lines really close to each other. I've not ever seen those print, but I do know exactly what you're talking about. It's like, oh, this is joined, because I do the same thing with all of my, like I just model the sheathing as its own floor. And then I always see the walls underneath that sheathing where they come up to the sheathing. Doesn't even have anything to do with the joint. It's just the fact that, oh, I've got a very thin surface. Revit's attempting to show that through the surface, and you'll see those ghosted lines. I've never had them print on me, but it is kind of annoyance because you're zooming around the file and you see all these little ghosted lines. Like, oh, I don't want to see those. But yeah, that's just kind of a surface battling happening in your graphics display. So I know what you're talking about. If you go make that plywood floor something like 3 inches thick, I bet you'll notice the ghosting goes away.
Oh, there you go. So you're not alone in that. Are you getting all ready for curtain wall questions?
Yep.
All right. So Simon's asking, do you know how to change the phase of the curtain wall panel embedded with another type of curtain wall type? Sometimes if I change the phase for those curtain wall, the embedded curtain wall phase will not change.
Actually, I wasn't sure if this were. I've never seen the panel not update to the phase, right? Because if I come up here and I just grab this curtain wall, phasing is grayed out because it's saying, no, I'm part of the host, therefore I must do what that host said. I was wondering if I embedded a curtain wall into the curtain wall. So if I grab this, this is a curtain wall embedded into a curtain wall. I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but it's kind of fun because you can come in here and be like, oh, cool. Now that I've got this one inside of here, I can do a curtain grid inside of this curtain wall. Curtain grid, put it inside this one. And then now that I've got that there, I can grab this whole curtain wall and I could be like, this curtain wall. And I could be like, cool, I wanted those horizontal grids to be at an angle, so then I can get one panel to have an angled mullion inside of it. But since it's still hosted as part of the parent, the phasing is grayed out. So the fact that you're saying you haven't seen a panel update to inside the curtain wall, I've never seen that because the panels got to, I mean, they're hosted into that family. So I've never seen the question you're asking. So Simon, I've not seen the issue where you're saying, hey, it doesn't do that unless somebody else is doing something bizarre and they're putting like an opening in there and then embedding the curtain wall in an opening. That might be a scenario. But I've not seen that, hey, those curtain walls try to change the phase create and phase demo. Yeah, but so I have to do it on the parent. Phase created new. Demo will be legend. Oops, sure, that works. Oh, then you're saying now this one isn't. Oh, well, there you go. It's a nested. So it's a nested curtain wall in a curtain wall, and those panels don't see the nest through. None. So now if I get this nested curtain wall, it's saying new and new, but then this panel isn't. So there you go. A nested curtain wall within a nested curtain wall. Nested curtain wall in a curtain wall. The panels in that nested curtain wall don't pick up on the phasing. So cool, there you go. Don't nest curtain walls if you need to phase that. So it's not the fact that you're embedding a curtain wall panel, you're embedding a curtain wall within a curtain wall. So that's one I need to submit to Autodesk, because that should be going through.
Yeah.
Because even the grid saying I'm on the legend phase. That's funny. So model it all in the right phase first. Don't change it. So I moved this to the new construction, but if I would have left it on legend and demoed it, let's see that. Undo, undo, undo. Let's leave it on the legend phase and demo it on the legend phase. Still doesn't do it. Interesting. Yep, nope. So it's the embedded curtain walls. Cool. See, I learned a new bug today.
A little sad. Well, there we go. That goes right into, have we found any bugs for 2025? So apparently that's not a new bug.
But I did find a bug that was in
But yes, we just found that bug. Thanks to you, Simon.
Well, the other question is, I don't think you guys stuck around, but in the last Revit Radio, we ended it, and there was like 4 or 5 of us who stuck around for an hour that we found out in my template, I have this split wall. And what I mean by, or sorry, vertically compound wall where I split the layers. So if I go look at my wall here, and I go look at this in a section preview, I've split it twice. So I have the same material top and bottom and a different material earlier in the middle. That's why this says variable and the 3/8 is grayed out. But by doing that, the new feature for 2025, when you're modeling walls, it says automatically join doesn't work. So if I were to come put a door in here, yeah, yes, I put it in the thin wall, not the thick wall. Put it in the thicker wall because I can't create a 3/8 inch thick door. And then you've got the join tool, which has always worked, but they changed it in 25. I'm like, cool, join this wall to this wall. It's not cutting it. It's like, all right, let's undo that. Let's join this wall to this wall. Still doesn't cut it. So the vertically compound walls are breaking that. If I delete that wall and go draw in it, actually just undo and undo. If I change that wall to a wall that is not vertically compound, and then I place my door in this one, and then I do the join tool. Yeah, that's right. You can't even use the wall. You can't swap it. So if I would have started with this wall, that's why I was redrawing it. Yeah, so if you had a wall that was that way, the join breaks. So that is a bug I found in 2025. So if your template has any walls that are this and you draw that wall first, the join tool doesn't work. I copied this wall into the out of the box template, was still broken. I brought all the out of the box template walls into mine and it started working fine. So yeah, that is the only bug so far that I've seen in 2025 that is new. And that one I actually just told Harlan last week, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you need to submit that to us. We need to get to the bottom of that." So I got to submit that one too. So now I have 2 to submit.
Well done.
All right, what else we got?
Let's see. Well, moving on there, we can go with, what are your top 5 personal favorite features of 2025?
The one I was most excited about for me was the arrays of 0. And it was hilarious. I went in to start looking at a lot of my families where I had all these arrays of 0. Oh, I don't have them down here anymore. And I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to go do the array of 0. I'm going to go change all my families. And then I started going in and looking at a lot of my, that's what I wanted. I started looking at a lot of my families and started realizing that I use a lot of the check parameters that I had in my array families that keep it from going to 0 because I use those then in formulas. So it was kind of like, oh yeah, I can't do a sign of 0. So it was like, oh, that's not working. So ironically, half the families I had, I'm like, this would be great. I'll be able to fix it. I went in to try to fix them. And I'm like, yeah, I can't really go through and change the arrays to be 0 and get rid of that because it's being used in some sort of formula. And so what I mean by that is like when we so 25, you could grab an array. Come on, there we go. You grab array, and you'll see I've got this one called cushion quantity actual 3. Well, then I was like, cool, I'm just going to delete that and just use cushion quantity because what the cushion quantity actual 3 was basically doing, cushion quantity actual, is just saying, hey, if it's less than 2, make it 2. But then I'm using this in other formulas, and it starts saying, oh, I can't be divided by 0, and it kept breaking all these other things, and it was like, well, shit. So I went through a whole bunch of my furniture families and realized it only worked out about 10% of my families. I'm like, hey, it's cool, and I'm glad I can do it on those families. But then there was like the other family I had was my table and chairs. So I've got my simple table chair family. Now where is my table and chairs? Table, rectangle. So with chairs, where's the table with chairs? Table and chairs, rectangle, this one. So I was gonna go in here and edit it to this one, but then I started realizing it was gonna make it more complicated because where I have a single chair modeled, it's centered on the table. But where I have 2 chairs modeled, they're not centered on the table. So I was like, cool, this one's just aligned and locked to the middle, and there's a visibility parameter to turn this one off when the chair equals 1, or turn it on when the chair equals 1. But if I were to go say, hey, those ends need to be 2, then there's the other ones, but they're set to come in a distance from the side. So I started realizing, well, that side distance, I'd have to change the math to get it centered on the table. And I'm like, that's going to overly complicate it. So again, could have an array of 0, didn't really benefit me and the family. So that's kind of the biggest one for me. There was a new thing that I had noticed, and I thought it was a new 25 thing, but I realized that they've actually been doing this since Revit 23, that they've just made it apparent now that we now have the personal accelerator down here in your start bar, which I've seen the personal accelerator before, and I thought I knew what it did. But what the personal accelerator does, and I didn't notice this, if you're working on an Autodesk Cloud project, so either ACC or BIM 360, when you're not in Revit, it is still downloading your cache. I did not know this until last week. So the personal accelerator says, hey, if you've been in this project and it's got something like within the last 10 days, I'm going to keep downloading the cache for you. So when you open it up, it's already up to date and you've already got the reload latest happening for you, as long as your machine's turned on. So if you're logged in and your machine is turned on, even though you're not in the file, it's updating the cache for you in your Revit. I did not know that happened. I thought that was a new 25 feature, and I was talking to Autodesk guys, they're like, yeah, no, that's been around since like 23. It's like, cool. So I thought it was a new 25 feature. It's not. What about you, Melissa? What's your new 25 favorite feature? You're muted. You're still muted.
And I don't have sound either. I don't have it on my laptop yet, so I haven't even played with it. How sad is that?
That's pretty sad, I have to say. I haven't. None of my clients are using it. I have one client that are going to try to get upgraded like within the next month, but none of my clients are actually using it. So it's more just me playing around with it. Oh yeah, and then I think the big one. Thank you for that. That everybody else started liking. And I can see this one being a big one is in the sheets. You can now create what's called a sheet collection. So you'll be able to go in and like, man, I now have my project, or my project X and project Y within this overall building. So my one client does a lot of TIs for big buildings. They can have the entire building in there. And then each time they do a new TI work for it, they can go in and say, cool, this sheet A101 is for TI remodel X. This sheet A101 is in the sheet collection Y. So we can have same sheet numbers in a project and start going through. So I think that's going to be a big one once I start getting people into it. But like I said, for me, it's been a lot of just playing around and going in and seeing what we're doing.
I think that was maybe one of my favorite theoretical ones. Just
Yeah, agreed.
and improvement stuff, and every time it's like, we kind of need the same sheet, but
All right, so what's the next question?
oh. So our last question, so well, I guess time-wise we're okay. From Rick is there any way to join 2 sweeps within a family so the location where they meet doesn't produce a line?
You can join 2 sweeps, and I'm going to edit my casing family here just to talk about, or not my casing, my jam family. You can join 2 sweeps to get rid of that line. So if I was to come in here and I was to say, cool, this is great, let me go say modify it, let me say join, let me say join this to this, the line goes away. The problem with doing that is if I look at this one, I have its visibility graphics to not display in plan. I do not want to see this top jam in plan. I obviously want to see, sorry, the top header in jam. I want to see the jam in plan. So this one isn't turned off by plan. But if I go back here and say join geometry, and I'm like, cool, join this one to this one, they now all pick up on the same property. So now when I go to this one, it's going to be displayed in plan, right? And I know a lot of people's solution is then, cool, then I hide all of this in the floor plan view, and I draw symbolic lines or a filled region or whatever to then represent that. I think that's personally crazy. In reality, there's a line here where this is built. Yes, we might have painted over that line, but there's still a line there. I personally don't worry about it. But that's what it would be. But when you join, you have to understand that they then have to have all of the same properties. So cool, you can join it, but you're going to lose the individuality of any property you want, like especially if you wanted a different material on here or a different material on here or whatever else you're looking for, you lose those capabilities. So the join tool should work for you on your sweeps. And as long as your sweeps are tangent or whatever else, it should be just fine. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, and I did have another question. This one is about rails. And I don't think I've upgraded my railing family to, oh, I thought I had Revit 24 open. Dang it. I guess we're going to be upgrading the 24 one real quick, because it'll probably be faster to do that than to open up Revit 24. So just verify I don't have railings opened here. Nope. I haven't upgraded that yet. I'm actually going slow this year and looking at each folder. Usually I just bulk upgrade everything, but I'm kind of like, oh, I want to look at the like array parameter and see if I can go through and do that. The railings, I'm gonna open up my sample railing file. So the question I had came up. I'm gonna pull this down here, and the first question is very simple. Can I get rid of the line when this is happening? The answer to that is, and this is very similar to the ghosting question that came up before, is no, you cannot. I've had people say they absolutely need to get rid of that. So all I can tell you is you could make technically this bottom rail a 32nd of an inch narrower than this, so it's inset on each side a 64th of an inch. But then when you cut a section and dimension, you're going to actually see that. You would still see those ghosting lines in that scenario, but if you were printing it, you would not see those hard-coded lines in there. So that's kind of one of those things when you look at is, yes, you're going to always see this. There's no way to tell Revit to cut that out, have a void built into the family. None of that works. The other question came up is, how do I get those patterns centered when I'm looking at this? So if I come in here and I start looking at any rail family, it doesn't matter which, that's using a baluster. Most people do not use or even know what this value down here is for. So I've got the cool, I want this to be distance from previous at 6 feet. What the heck is this pattern offset distance from previous here? If I wanted this to be centered as opposed to, the gap to be centered or as opposed to the post to be centered, I could come up here and say, cool, I want that at 3 feet and I want this at 3 feet. So I could divide that number in half. And now when I say, nah, that apply is not going to do anything. And now when I say okay to this, you're going to see that those are all going to shift over. So rather than the gap being centered, I now have this post being centered. So you can get those baluster families to be centered and get that to come up. He was asking, can I get it to be centered and then also have the excessive fill length work? Doesn't really work that way. So if I go back to the edit type on this, there's two things on there. One, in the baluster placement, you also have this thing down here called my justification. Right now, my justification is set spread pattern to fit. That means, try to spread the pattern and make it fit inside of there. But you also then have this excessive fill. So a lot of people don't understand. I have this as spread pattern to fit. So even though I'm saying being 6 feet apart, these aren't exactly 6 feet apart. Normally, you're going to say, cool, I want to justify these patterns at the beginning, the center, or the end. You have this. And if you have these not as spread pattern to fit, you then get this excessive length fill. I can say truncate the pattern. It's going to try to add the same pattern. Or you can choose to replace an anything excessive length a completely different baluster family. And then you say apply. And you say spacing for excessive length fill is too small. Oh, over here. And then if you've got the excessive length fill, you've got to change the, yes, I know, shut up. Spacing here, we'll just say 2 inches. So fill it up at 2 inches there, say okay, and now at the end you can see I have a completely different baluster with a completely different spacing. So no, there's not necessarily a way to say fill this up, stretch it to be, and especially back in that email where he's probably modeled this as a baluster in and of itself. So this little rectangular square thing is a baluster. Getting that to be, no. But the one thing you could also do in a scenario like this is rather than making this a panel, you could literally have 5 different balusters placed at the same location. So what I mean by that one is if I come over here to this one, I did not make this one baluster panel. Actually, that's not the one I'm looking for. I'm looking for this one. I did not make this one baluster. I didn't make a circle down here and a circle up here. If I edit the baluster placement on this one, you're going to see my distance from previous just happens to be 0 with a different top offset. So I've got this one is going to be set to the lower rail. This one's going to be set to the middle rail, and the distance from previous is 0. So I'm literally just saying, cool, put one from the top rail or the mid rail, which happens to be this one from the lower rail, which is this one, and then make them 0 distance from that one. So these two are both the exact same thing. They're just a 0 offset. So technically, if I look back at this, I could have had 1 square, 2 squares, 3 squares, and then 1 diagonal and another diagonal that was parametric. And I could have put all 5 of those in the same location. And that might help you with your pattern when you're getting into it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a pattern. Again, it's still not going to necessarily fill it. It's going to change the size, but that's just another way to start looking at this, Chris. So hopefully that kind of a little bit answers Chris's question of no, but try the 0 distance from previous as 0 as well. And I do that on quite a few handrails. I was thinking I did that on this one over here, but I remembered I didn't because somebody, like his original post came up, I want to get rid of all of those lines because I had these in here and I had extra lines and like there's overlapping lines. I'm like, okay, cool. So then I just made this X part its own thing. And then I think I did the same thing here. Like I said, I made this slightly narrower than the other one just because I wanted, it's technically, I don't think it's fabricated that way, but I just wanted to get a better look than what I was coming up with. So hopefully that answers your question. I think it was Chris who sent that email to me. Yeah. So what else we got?
We have one from Trevor saying, if I move a wall in a section view, I will lose tags or dimensions associated with the wall in plan views. Is this common or am I modeling incorrectly?
You are not modeling incorrectly. The key word is you said you're moving. If you are in the move command, we'll go back to this project. You're missing a checkbox. So somebody came in and they went in and used this beautiful tool that could be devastating. So let me go to level 1 here. It's not just a wall, it's anything you're actually moving. So if I were to come in here and say, cool, I just want to move this beam up 2 feet. I'm going to grab my move command here. I'm going to move it up, right? Everything's fine and dandy. But if I go move it again and I check disjoin disjoins that object from every other object on there. So what probably happened for you is you were like, cool, when I moved this wall, it moved all the walls and everything else associated to it. That's probably a beam, so probably a terrible idea. But it moved all the other walls. Here we go, this one. So like if I come up here and I move this wall and I make sure my disjoin isn't unchecked, I move this wall. I don't want it to go, I don't want these walls to extend with it. I just want to move this wall. I don't want anything to happen. Notice how long my process right now is taking because it's actually moving all the beams above, all the floors above, everything that's associated to it. But if I grab that wall and hit move and I check disjoin, the cool part is it's not going to move these walls with it, but it's also going to be deleting anything that's associated to it, tags, dimensions, all the associativities. So like floors, my floor didn't move, everything associated to it. In essence, what it's doing is making a copy of it and deleting the original. So where that can be extremely devastating, let me go into a section. Where's my working views? So where this can be extremely devastating and it's really, 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 really fun is if somebody has that checked and they're not paying attention, and they're going to be like, cool, I want to go ahead and move this level down a foot. And nobody pays attention to warnings. They're like, yeah, whatever. Watch all of my views disappear. Watch all of my elements associated to that level disappear. I've literally just deleted like half of my building on level 3. Oops, wrong 3D view. So with that disjoin checkbox checked, it basically just joins it from everything. I probably lost half of my framing. If I did level 1, I'd lose all the walls associated to it. So it can be really devastating with having disjoin checked because it will delete your levels, etc. So your question isn't, are you modeling things wrong? Question is you missed that simple checkbox of disjoin. That's it. It used to be in old releases, if you ticked it and you restarted Revit, it would go off, but you know, they keep having Revit remember everything in newer releases, so that was your problem, Trevor. Now I gotta make sure I'm gonna go move something else because next time I get into Revit, it's gonna be turned off. Move, pick something,
I've been bit by
finish.
that before.
It's like, okay, it's off. Yeah, so if I need to use the disjoin tool, I will literally be like, okay, I need to move this with disjoin. Let me move this. Let me check disjoin. Let me move it. And then I will literally go right back into the move command and uncheck disjoin and be like, cool, now I can cancel. Because if you don't do the uncheck disjoin, it remembers that setting. So when I need to use it, it's a rare occasion, but when I need to use it, I just right back into the move command to untoggle that back off.
That is a good tip.
And that is 5 minutes over. I did better than normal.
Ooh, that is good. Ooh.
All righty. Well, I thank everyone for joining and thank you for all of the great questions as usual. Hopefully next month there'll be a few more people on Revit 25 besides me playing with it, including myself. I hope to actually get real projects in 25, and maybe Melissa will actually even get it installed. Who knows? Otherwise, oh, there was a new desktop connector out yesterday, and I also noticed as Jason said, the Revolution design tools came out yesterday too. So thank you everybody for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month. And again, I will attempt to get this posted on my YouTube channel. So if you missed anything or you have people you want to show, please spread the wealth. Otherwise, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next month.